Welcome on in, everybody. It's your boy Gsluke here with our round 2 live stream for the Travelers Championship. Gonna break down props, also some DFS for tomorrow, and make sure we're all on the same page and ready to go out there and build a few slips and lineups. So first off, welcome to the chat. We've got Arbo talking about the LPGA tour down there. Yeah, they've got a major this week, so definitely gonna be keeping an eye on that. And yeah, I've never seen the LPGA product on DK. Wish it was a little bit bigger. What's going on, Hollis? Mark down there. We got Jose down in the chat as well. First off, what are you drinking? It's a little timid for me today. You can see it's a Starbucks cup, a little bit of coffee in the system. Not doing anything crazy on a Thursday. But hey, if it's water down there, if you're drinking liquid death, if you're drinking coffee yourselves, let's hear it, right? I love it. If you're drinking bourbon down there, first off, cheers to you. And a little bit jealous here myself. But let's go through what we saw on the golf course today, which was kind of the tale of two halves. You saw a golf course in the morning that played slightly under par, pretty similar to what we see at most Travelers Championships. And believe it or not, slightly easier conditions in the afternoon. Now, there's a couple of aspects that I think that added to that. A lot of it would be field strength, right? Almost all of the top 5-10 in the official World Golf rankings were players in the PM wave. But you also had slightly warmer conditions. They talked about the winds pretty much being non-existent for most of the round. So I think on top of the talent level difference, when you have, the slightly warmer weather, right, the ball travels a little bit further. I think that's why you saw about a half a stroke difference between the two waves. It was actually like 0.44 strokes. So maybe not quite a half stroke difference between the two. But still sizable enough that somebody like a McCarthy shot 10 under par. You had an Adam Scott in the PM wave. You had Scotty Scheffler PM, Eric Cole. Let's see, Sanjay. I believe Cam Davis might have even been a PM wave player. Still guys in the AM went off, right? Like a Keegan Bradley, who I'm sure a lot of people thought were going to be first round leader. Guys like Shane Lowry shot a 6 under par bogey free round. Ches Reavie, so on and so forth. So it was a good mix between AM and PM wave. But maybe it was talent level based. Maybe it was because of the temperature out there. At least stat wise, the PM got the better side of it. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's going to play out the same exact way. And I say unfortunately because, if it's going to be a rinse and repeat copy of round one, it's real easy to just look at the data, go out there, react to what we saw. But unfortunately, that stronger wave, right, the better players are now going to be in the opposite wave, right? They'll be going off early tomorrow, so that'll be skewing it a little bit. And then furthermore, we have better conditions in the morning. So you'll see slightly lower sustained winds and wind gusts for there on Friday. In terms of your temperature, it's starting a little bit warmer than it did on Thursday. So rather than starting in like the high 50s, it's starting at like 65 degrees over here on Friday. And then it heats up kind of gradually, right? It's not going to get into the 70s until right around midday. So the ball will be traveling a little bit further in the afternoon. But if this wind forecast, which is the HRRR forecast right here, the one that tends to be the most accurate that we look at on this channel, if that ends up ringing true, and we do have slightly higher wind gusts and slightly higher sustained winds in the afternoon, then a lot of that advantage is going to get wiped out. So it depends on how much you want to take this weather forecast and play it. If we take a look at this NEM model, which I would say is like the second most accurate model that we have, they're actually calling for a little bit of rain in the morning, which I wouldn't worry about all that much, right? They're calling for 1/100th of an inch of rain, which is pretty much non-existent. It means it's going to be like a mist out there. And then the afternoon wave, kind of what I want to focus on here, right, is the sustained winds, right, which they kind of gear up there a little bit, right, get a little bit more severe. And then the wind gust perspective too, right, they get closer to like 10 to even 18 miles an hour like you have there at 4 p.m., which, again, if that's the case, any kind of advantage that the AM wave is going to get, I think kind of gets thrown to the window. So I'm still going to be playing a lot of AM players. I do think that the receptive greens, the slightly more perfect greens, right, that haven't been trampled on, that and because this week, we have a bent POA surface, that POA tends to bud throughout the day. They're also going to get a little bit bumpier as the day goes on too. So that's why this like half a stroke advantage, or I guess 0.44 stroke advantage, was especially surprising. Is typically, right, you've got the firm and fast greens in the afternoon. You've got the imperfections. You've got POA this week, right? Getting a little bit bumpy as the day goes on, but maybe it was the talent level. I think it had a lot to do with the temperature. They did have an advantage in the PM. So if you're going over here, you're looking at this wind forecast, you're trying to play an advantage, right? Trying to stack one waiver or the other. I think if you play one and try and stack it 5 or 6 in one direction, it's just a fool's errand tomorrow. I don't know if you're really getting all that much advantage unless you just luck sack your way into that advantage, right? Based on what we're looking at here, right? The guys in the afternoon, right? They're going to have warmer conditions. They're also going to they might be in slightly more windy conditions. So it all ends up canceling out at the end of the day. So when you get to the player pool, I have a good mix of AM and PM players, but there are some AM guys in the pool, especially I'd say up top, that I kind of forced into some of my lineups because I wanted them on receptive greens. If they're going to be throwing darts, right, be completely on top of their approach game, I want them to be able to go out there and take advantage and score. So we've got our projections up. We'll get into these in just a second. We'll catch up on chat. Someone's mad at Will Gordon. Yeah, I feel you on that. You think the PM wave played better because of all the studs? I think that plus the temperature, I think may have added to that. It was a lot easier to reach the par 5s. They were talking about that. Some of the par 4s were like a 3-wood wedge as opposed to like a 3-wood short iron for some of the earlier players in the day. So yeah, a lot of it had to do with the talent level. Completely agree with you there. Hey, Luke, what's up? You won $80 on Cantley under strokes and Thomas over strokes. There you go. Very nicely done, Justin. But you kind of disappointed because Matt Kuchar totally sold you. Frustrated with Kuchar. Yeah, it happens, man. He's been pretty consistent this year, right? He's been making a lot of cuts. He's had a few spike performances. Definitely not his best stuff there in round 1. I don't know the reason why. In fact, I didn't look at the shots gained metrics. I have to imagine, right, if he shot a 77, more than just one thing was to blame, right? And if you look at it real quick, I'll just do a little cursory glance for you. Yeah, he lost across all 4 categories. So I don't know. Sometimes that's just go for you. And unfortunately, you took him in Showdown over there for Underdog. Not ideal. But let's go through our total strategy here. Let's see. Did we catch up on chat? Not quite yet. A couple more comments. Can't play an X at 1.5 bogeys. Yeah, I already played those, Travis. I'm totally over those. And even some AM wave fades at 1.5, I'll be on as well. I got to get my Discord to shut up. I need to turn it on Do Not Disturb so I stop getting these notifications. Yeesh. Mark Gornman says, first Morikawa screwed you, then Kuchar took a turn. Yeah, I had both of those guys in my poll, but they were lower exposure guys for me. So yeah, I can empathize with you, but honestly, didn't screw me too much. So first off, let's start with the recap of today. I have 60-something% Scotty. That absolutely went off, obviously. I have about 50% Patrick Cantlay, so that ended up going pretty well for our main slate stuff. And then down low, Ben Griffin, I think, is the guy that's disappointing me the most because I have a lot of lineups with Scotty and Cantlay, right? I told you guys about that. And not all of them have Ben Griffin, right? We talked through a couple other guys down low that I liked, but I played like 15% Ben Griffin. Like I went ham on the guy this week. Like I made sure that I was way, way over the field on Ben. And unfortunately, a lot of my lineups that have like an Adam Scott in them or, a few other players that are like -7 on the board, -6 on the board. Ches Reavie, for example, Lowry, right, who had the bogey-free round. I have all those guys in those kind of lineups. Most of them were with Ben Griffin. So I need a miracle from Ben Griffin. Let's just say that much. He's the guy I'm the most pissed at. I could see being mad at Morikawa, right? He's a stud, so I'm sure a lot of people played him. He was just horrible all around the board. He was horrible with the irons. So that's a huge red flag with somebody like a Morikawa. And then who was the other one? Kuchar. Yeah, I don't know. He was relatively low owned. So I don't know if that many other people had a good old Cooch. You'll update with the prop report in 10 minutes. Perfect. That'll be in plenty of time by the time we get to props. So in terms of DFS, guys, round 2 Showdown, this is a tried strategy. Right? I don't deviate from this for pretty much any slates unless there's a massive weather edge to be had. Anytime you're playing a round 2 Showdown, almost all of the chalk, a lot of the ownership starts to congregate around the guys that played round well in round one, right? The guys that just went out there on Thursday, lit it up, whether they were AM wave, whether they were PM wave. And what we've started to notice is that more recently, a lot of the AM wave golfers also start to get steamed up. So you've got steam coming in on the top of the board. You've got steam coming in on the guys in the quote unquote AM wave, the advantage out there. And we've already talked about how I think the PM wave with the warmer conditions, right? Maybe that wind doesn't actually end up coming through. Maybe it plays to the same kind of conditions as the morning, and you can get a little bit of leverage on the field there too. So these ownership projections, they incorporate the leaderboard, right? A lot of the chalk is focused at towards the top of the board, but artificially, some of these AM wave pivots, I'm incorporating into there too, right? So like a Rory, a John Rahm, don't think that they're just going to be completely unowned because Scotty Scheffler is lapping them in terms of total score. Don't think that a Cantlay, right, at -5 is going to be all that much chalkier than some of the other people here, right? He's what, like 7-8% higher owned, but he's not going to be 10 to 15% higher owned. People know to play these AM wave pivots, and like a Cantlay, right, is a PM wave golfer, right? That's why I only have him at like 23%. Let's see, Wyndham Clark, right? He's a PM wave golfer. He played pretty decently. Even Sahith Theegala, right? I only have it like 17.5% because he's PM wave, and not a lot of people, especially some of the casuals that just like don't even look at the weather, right? They just assume that the AM wave is going to be better, which is a pretty safe assumption for most slates. I'll say that, right? It's not crazy to go out there and think that. Still, I think it's going to keep these guys a little bit lower owned than they probably should be. So there's some PM guys that I'm mixing in. You can see that there's plenty of AM wave guys I'm taking too, right? Like a Ricky that I think can go out there, maybe throw some darts. You've got a Tony Finau I've got in my player pool in the AM wave, Victor Hovland, for example. So there are shots I'm taking in pretty much both waves, but what I'm saying and what I'm trying to point out here is that ownership's very easy to predict, right? So over here in the projected ownership tab, just letting you know, right? A lot of people ask how I predict ownership, how my algorithm works. A lot of it in round two, and it's different for every single round. A lot of it in round two is tied to a player's score. A lot of it is tied to a player's ownership in 4-round stuff. That gives me a good baseline for a player. And then furthermore, it kind of changes slate to slate, but it's a weather edge, right? And the one that I'm building in, at least for the public for tomorrow, and I don't think really is going to be the actual weather edge, is an AM wave advantage, right? Because that's just like most people go out there and throw into their lineups. I've seen a few other pieces of content at this point that are already throwing out a huge advantage for the AM wave. And while I think there could be a slight advantage, right? I think if the winds do kick up in the PM, right, the AM, especially given that they have a higher talent level, is probably going to play easier than the PM. But if it dies down like today, right, they were calling winds for the afternoon here on Thursday. If it doesn't come to fruition there on Friday, you very well could see a reversal happen. So keep that in mind. The ownership reflects all of that. And I would say anytime you're playing Showdown, right, ownership is king. It's a single round sample. It's volatile. Crazy stuff happens in golf. Play the pivots. Don't play all the chalk. There's some chalk I'm playing. You can see I like Scotty, right? I'm playing Matty Fitz, right? I got him at 16% ownership. And you may say, Matty Fitz, like that seems like pretty steep ownership, Luke, but he's AM wave. He hit the ball really well in approach today, and you'll see tomorrow. People are going to play Matty Fitz, right? He's going off early. He's got the best, tee time wave. He played pretty well in round one. Now, I know that, right? I've got him at 16% ownership, and I'm still playing him. But just like these quote-unquote pivots up top, right? And I'm going to throw Rory and John Rahm into that conversation, aren't going to be as low owned as you think. Just know that. They're not going to be – they might even be 20% owned plus. Rory and a John Rahm, it wouldn't surprise me, especially considering John Rahm is 10,600, way cheaper than what he was for 4-round stuff. If he would be 20% plus owned there. In terms of some of your 7K options, there's quite a bit of chalkier at the top of the 7K. A lot of it has to do with the leaderboard, right? Guys like a Scott that shot -8, Denny McCarthy that shot -10. I mean, geez, shot 60. Tip of the cap there to Denny McCarthy. That's crazy. A Keegan Bradley, a Shane Lowry, right, with his bogey-free round. I'm avoiding this whole range. You can see none of them are in my player pool. They could go out there. They could back up that round. I'll just say it's tough to go out there, back up a round, a low round out there on the PGA Tour. You don't see it very often. When somebody does, right, they're getting a 3, sometimes 4 or 5 shot lead to the field. And that usually happens like maybe 3-4 times a year, right? And that kind of player has a good chance to go out there and go wire to wire, which is even more rare on the PGA Tour. So Those kind of performances, I don't want to say by default I go out there and fade, but I know that they're going to be higher owned. They're always higher owned, those sort of players. I'm going to throw all of these guys into that same sort of bucket. And it makes me really hard to, it makes it hard for me to get there in some of these larger field contests. So I prefer some of the lower owned options, a Jason Day who maybe didn't have his best stuff, a Corey Connors who still had a decent round out there, but I only have it like 12%, right? And if you wanted to play like a Minwoo, or if you wanted to throw even like a Lowry into your, lineups for tomorrow, like I could see it, right? I'd be okay with that. But if you find yourself playing like 3-4 players in this super chalky range, that's when I think you're going to have to kind of step back and evaluate things there a little bit. Towards the middle of the 7K, there's a few options. I like Steven Yeager, makes a bunch of birdies. Miliano Grillo can always get me behind a ball striker. I kind of like playing the chalk that quote unquote disappointed in round one, right? Keep in mind, Mark Hubbard still shot slightly better than the field average and gets to go off early. So I kind of like that for Mark Hubbard, right? Only 9.5% projected owned. We've got Patrick Rogers. He had a really good round today. For whatever reason, my algorithm still only has him at 1.8%. So I don't know if it was price tag. I do think that in maybe some of your single entries, some of the higher dollar contests, he'll come in slightly higher owned than that. I feel like the sharps are going to have to play this guy, right? He's too cheap. He played too well in round one. He's going off early too, for him to be somebody that people are avoiding. But in large field contests, I think a lot of it has to do with Ches here, right? Maybe Ches because he's at -6. You even got like Brendan Todd at -5 getting some ownership, and other guys around him that also shot under par. That I think enough people aren't going to play Rogers. That I think it makes him a really good showdown play. So another guy that makes a bunch of birdies. You got Woo in there. We've got Adam Shank in my lineups. A Seamus Power, a KH Lee, all players that play decently, right? Better than the field average. Some of them are AM Wave, some of them are PM. Or you can see KH Lee is a PM Wave golfer. Adam Shank, right? PM Wave golfer. I'm not as afraid as I think some people to take the PM guys. Now, on average, if you look at my player pool, there are more AM guys than PM guys in my player pool. So worth noting that I am slightly favoring that way, but it's not making every decision for me. Let's see. In the 6K range, plenty of guys I'm mixing in, right? Again, if you want access to this sheet so you can download it, see everyone that I'm playing, look at ownership, right? Make your decisions on Showdown accordingly. Check out my Patreon page too. There's going to be a link in the description of the video to that. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. There's a bunch of guys in the 6K I'm playing. If I just scroll down here, look at all that green. I guess I'll throw a few at you here. Taylor Moore, right? Just a high upside, really good player, PGA Tour winner at $6,700. I'm going back to Ben Griffin. I need a miracle. I need a made cut there. Let's see. Sam Ryder. I think he's just a baller. That's way too cheap. Scott Stallings, same thing. There's a lot of flyers towards the bottom of the board here. So like I said, if you want to, check out the whole sheet, download it, use these projections in your optimizer, check it out there on the Patreon page. It's worth noting too, down in the description, we also have a link to the DK community contest. I am going to be doing it for Showdown going forward. So we'll be doing streams for rounds 3 and 4. You guys know that, right? We've been doing that for pretty much the last few months. And we're going to be doing a little review at the beginning of streams, going over that contest. So it's a $5 entry, a little bit more expensive. You want to play for a little bit more there. 100 entries total. If you want a piece, of the game there, you want to play for bragging rights, have a little bit of money on the line there too. The top 15 are paid. It's down there in the description. Should be quite a bit of fun. So check it out. Let's see, and let's catch up some chat. Let's catch up on what you guys are saying down there and talk some props afterwards. Let's get some coffee in me. Need to slow down here a little bit. More flour. Yeah, I know a lot of other people touted them this week, which I guess I understand. Course fit made sense, so I know why a lot of people got there. I wasn't as sold. I like the course fit. I definitely played him this week, but he wasn't a really key piece for me, if that makes sense. I had him closer to like 20%. I took a couple key pieces up top. Let's see. Lowry, I had like 3-4x leverage on. Scotty, Cantlay, believe it, even with their super high ownership, I had over 2x leverage, close to 2.5, 3x leverage on both players. and then I scattershotted. Like I have guys that I hated today, like a Homa in my lineups, right? But also at 20%, I have guys that are the nuts, like an Adam Scott, a Keegan Bradley thrown into lineups. Let's see. I guess they're not the nuts at this point, but a bunch of guys in the 8-9K range, right, that are there at 3-4 under par. It's I don't know. At least for me, I couldn't make a lot of decisions in the 8-9K range. There was quite a few pivots you could take. Right? I loved Sunjay as a pivot, but I took pivots like JT too that sucked this week. I really couldn't make a lot of decisions there. Best chance for a rebound from some of the bigger disappointments. So, best chance. I mean, one of these top end options, right? I don't know if Morikawa would throw into that. He was really bad on approach, and that's kind of what we count on for Colin Morikawa. So I don't think he would be at the top of that list for me. Let's see. In terms of like disappointments, let's get something at like best, maybe 1 under. So I guess Tony Finau, you could say kind of disappointed. Ricky Fowler, for sure. I'd say Fowler would be the answer for me. It'd either be a Fowler or I might say a Max Homa, because I don't think Max Homa played really all that terribly out there today. The reason why we'll go with Ricky Fowler is he just couldn't really buy a putt today, right? He eagled both of the par fives. His long irons were on fire. The driver was a little bit off today. I think that kind of contributed to his I would say, lukewarm round, right? Didn't get it moving, right? But really wasn't hemorrhaging strokes at the same time. Did make, I believe, like 4 bogeys. Actually, sorry, it was like 2 bogeys, 1 double bogey on the day, something like that on the scorecard. But yeah, I like Ricky. He played really well last week. He's gotten over the hangover now, right? He's gotten a round under his belt after having that collapse happen on Sunday. Hopefully he can play better. Siwoo Kim seems like the chalk that bombs in round 1, and then he goes ham when no one plays him. Yeah, and I'm playing him tomorrow, Gerg. I'm there with you. Siwoo Kim's just a crazy guy. He's aggressive. He plays at every single pin, right? He does not play to 10, 15 feet to the left, right? He does not play to the center of some of these green complexes, which can go in one of 2 directions, right? He can be 4 over par like he was at one point today, or he could go out there tomorrow, shoot that 62, that 63, and not even just make the cut, but get himself into like the top 25 of this golf tournament. So, yeah, he's an AMT time. I'm there with you. He's only 8.1% owned. The narrative there, maybe up for debate, but I think he's a great play. That's for sure. I know we're on DFS, but there are some low bogey lines on Underdog. Yeah, if you check out the Patreon page, I've already explored that a little bit. If you aren't on there, check it out. Because yeah, they might move. In fact, I think they probably will move. The bogey average was 3.13 today for the field. Granted, Prize Picks, Underdog, right, posting some of the elite tier players. You have to take that with a grain of salt. You have to normalize for that, but still 3.31 birdies. When you're talking about like 1.5 bogey projections, oh boy, if we got like 1 bogey for any players out there, I would just be licking my chops. So we've gone through most of this DFS board. I guess the closing thoughts for DFS before we hop into props here. I guess from the lineup construction perspective, I've been trying to just focus on that when we're going through the player pool there a little bit. But, round 2 showdown, just take your pivots, right? If you're going to take somebody chalky, like let's say a Scotty Scheffler, I am playing a slightly chalky fit, right? So I guess we can throw him into this kind of lineup. If you want to start like this in cash, by all means, right? No issues. You can take whoever the heck you want with the other 6 spots. Starting with this in a GPP, we got to start to kind of think about ownership, right? Because we got a 30% owned Scheffler, a 15% owned Matty Fitz. If we were to go in here and let's say take a Sunjay M, right? He's kind of chalky, and I don't hate the play, right? He played really well today. Let's throw in another slightly higher owned player. Let's throw Connors, right? I like Connors for tomorrow, but he's also going to be like 12, maybe even like 15% owned going off early. This lineup's kind of chalky, right? We have no one that's sub 10%. So with our last 2 spots, if we weren't careful about this, not only could we run into dupes, we're going to have a really hard time getting leverage in any one of our 6 spots. So rather than going in here and taking, let's say like a chalky Ches Reavie, are going to $7,100 and taking, let's say, I don't think there's mega chalk at $7,100, but let's say throw in like a Cam Davis in there, right? Who's there at -5. You're going to have a hard time. A lot of people are going to have at least 3 of these 4 guys up top, if not an exact core of 4 players there. And then, I mean, if you're taking a Cam Davis, right, who's going to be pretty chalky for tomorrow's showdown, you round it off with another chalky piece there. That's not the situation you want to be in large field GBPs. So you could start with 3, maybe even all 4 of those chalky pieces up there. But for those last 2 spots, right, that's where I want to go to some of those 6, maybe 7K options that I'm taking at sub 2% ownership. So just be careful with who you're rounding out your lineups with. Don't fall in love with guys at the top of the leaderboard. Take some sort of pivots, take risk, calculated risk with parts of your player pool, parts of your lineups, and you'll have fun for round 2 showdown. You just don't want to be with a lot of that chalk. It's a crazy sport. It's a crazy game that we're playing, and treat it as such. Let's see. Do we have the, let's see if, can I find the community contest to show it to you guys? So the link's down below. Here we go. The showdown contest right here. You can see it's $5 entry. I've got 23 in there already. It was made about an hour ago. It's a $5 entry, so a little bit more expensive, and pays the top 15. So I'm going to go ahead and actually throw the link down in chat in case anyone hasn't seen it. And we'll hop into some of the pins because I can see my boy Frady down there in chat. Cheers to you, Frady. Let us know that the pins are posted. So perfect. We've got up Twitter. You can see I was ready for this. And by the way, if you see this, we're off stream and they drop pins. You don't have to do this, but if you happen to tag me on it on Twitter, I will be forever grateful for that. Just saying. For anyone that's constantly refreshing on there like I am. So pins, they look tucked, but they look tucked today, right? There were a lot that were 4 paces off the side, and they still absolutely took the cover off the course. I'll remind you, 3.13 bogey average, but we still had a scoring average of about 1 under par in the afternoon, right? So this birdie average was well over 4 birdies. It was actually close to kind of like 4.5 birdies in the afternoon. So pins look similar. Without looking at slopes, which we can look at some of the slopes here in a second, it doesn't look all that much different, right? They're not all near water. Now there's a few, right? This 13 pin looks kind of tricky. 16's near a bunker and that front water hazard. So I guess that could be kind of tricky. Right? A front pin at 17, I guess, is kind of devilish. But let's take a look at the slopes, right? That's really more what we're worried about, and we're more worried about like the easy holes, right? Not necessarily the more difficult holes, especially when we're going through props, which again, I'll remind you guys, that's what we're about to go through. I know, let's see, did Prize Picks post anything? It looks like they have, okay. So they have pars or better up, and look, they're all at like 2. So that's good to know because I took a lot of overs at 1.5. So I wanted to know that. That's good to see. And yeah, we'll hop into these boards here in a second. In fact, there's the slip. Okay, that wasn't supposed to be up there. You didn't see anything. Anyways, hole 1 is like a front right pin. It's like kind of where my cursor is right here. Let's see, is it showing up correctly? It looks like it is. It doesn't look like there's like a backstop to work with. There is this little like fall off area to the right. There's not a slope taking it there. So I don't think it's going to come into play unless you hit a poor shot into this green. I would say a neutral pin location at hole number 1. I don't think it's helpful to birdies. I don't think it's going to cause a lot of bogeys either. It just looks like your everyday normal kind of pin. Hole 2 is a back right. You can see up here 5 paces off the right, a good ways back there. So probably yonderish, right where I have this cursor over here. A little bit of a side slope to the right, I actually think might help players. If you miss in the bunker to the right, that's going to suck. It's going to be hard to get the ball close. But it's 339. It's short. You can nearly drive this green. And I think this kind of pin, a lot of people are going to go for it. Because if you get it anywhere near the green, right, you can use this little slope and kind of like feed it off of it. Right, you don't want to miss right. If you're in this bunker, I don't think you're going to have a lot of success, but it's 339, right? Unless it's directly downwind, only the longest players are really going to get it up there. If you're hitting little 40, 50-yard shots, I kind of like that little hill. I actually think it might be pretty helpful. So I would say hole 2 is a birdie hole, right? It was a birdie hole anyways, but the pin I think might actually help them out a little bit. Hole 3 is a back left pin. You can see 5 paces off the left. Again, also pretty good ways back there, right? Towards the back of the green complex. This one looks kind of like hole 1. There's not a bowl aspect to it. There are some slopes that look like it's feeding to this area, right where my cursor is. That's where it looks like the pin location is going to be, but nothing that severe. So I would say pretty neutral. Not that easy, definitely not that hard. Hole 4 is towards the middle of the green. It's 8 paces off the right. It's 19 paces on. Let's see what this looks like. It's the longer par 4. It's one of the harder holes. And I would say it makes the hole slightly easier, right? It's going to play like maybe 15, 20 yards shorter just because of the pin location. You have a little false front over here. So I don't know if you're going to see many birdies at this hole, but it probably plays similar to today, right? I think it plays over par, but I don't think it plays all that difficult. And speaking of, would it play overall? Did it play to like a +3 scoring average? Yeah, that's probably what it plays to tomorrow. I don't think it's going to be too far off that. Hole 5 is a middle left pin. It's 5 paces off of the left. This one has a little backstop, but once again, the slopes here aren't that severe, so it's not going to be like LACC where you can run balls off of slopes and get them real close. But I would say once again, it's a par 3. It's a longer shot to begin with. Maybe it helps you at least hold the green, right? You're going to have like 15 to 20 feet to putt there. It's another neutral pin. I don't think it's that helpful, but it's certainly not hard. Hole 6 is a back middle pin. It's technically 9 paces off the right, but it's really a back middle pin. That's a easy pin, but a long hole, right? It was playing 581 today. Maybe they do move up the tee boxes, right? That's always a possibility, but there's no way for us to know that. If they play it from the same tee boxes, it will place like closer to 600 yards. So maybe slightly less birdies, but that depends on tee box. If they shorten that thing up, they could cook hole number 6. Hole 7's a back left pin. We're going to go through these slightly quicker. That actually kind of looks like a tough pin, I have to say. So shorter hole, but kind of tough pin at 7. Hole 8 is a front right pin. That looks like an easier location. It's going to play like 40 yards shorter than today. So, and that's if they use the same tee locks. They could even move up the tees. Hole 9 is a left pin. It's like towards the front middle, like over in this direction. That looks like another neutral pin. Not too easy, not too difficult. Hole number 10, let's see. Back middle, actually probably shading a little bit towards the right. That actually might be a pretty tough. Hole 10 is a tough hole to begin with. It's a hard hole to drive. That's a pretty tough pin back there. So you might see some bogeys at hole 10. In fact, I think it'll play more difficult than today. Hole 11's shading towards the left side. Let's see. It's going to play slightly longer than today. I would say a little bit of an easier pin. So maybe play slightly easier, but not that much. Hole 12 is tucked towards this back right. That's a tough pin. Okay, so this back 9, right? Front 9 kind of seemed neutral, maybe slightly easier. This back 9 so far looks a little bit harder, we'll say, in total. Hole 13 is your par 5. It is tucked on the front, so kind of close to the water. So you might see people spin it off there. So those bogey lines we took, right? Like if you make a mistake at this par 5, you could easily bogey, right? Not just par it, right? Normally, if you're at a par 5, you miss like your wedge shot in, spin it off the front of the green, or you're over the green and you hit a bad chip, right? And you run it over the other side. Normally, it's not a bogey, right? Normally, you can still chip, get up and down, make a par. You do that on this hole tomorrow, it's going to be a bogey, right? Because the pin's pretty close to this false front. So I like these bogey props we took, especially with some of those windy conditions in the afternoon. I have to say, right, like some of the holes looked easier on the front 9, but this back 9 looks like it's going to chew them up a little bit more. Hole 14 is tucked towards this bunker. I guess if you missed in the bunker, it would suck. There's a little bit of a false front to the right. That's another kind of tricky pin. Let's see, hole 15. It's another one tucked to like the back left. Let's see what that looks like. It's another kind of like shelf, right? There's a little false front in front of it. I don't love that for birdies. I don't love that for like strokes. It looks like a bogey pin. Let's see. Hole 16 is tucked near the water. These are tough. Like there's a few slopes that are helping you, like even on 16, right? Like you have like slopes like kind of behind it helping you, but it's close to the damn water. Like that's not fun. Hole 17. Let's see, it's 400 yards, so it's a short hole. You've got the water off the tee to worry about. 17 is always kind of a bogey hole, and it's to the right side over here, also tucked near the water. I don't know. Those bogey props are looking nice. That's what I'm going to say. And the last one's like like over here, and you got the slope over here. Yeah, oh boy. Yeah. This back nine, guys, I don't think it's going to play over. It might play over par, right? It played slightly under par today. It might play over par tomorrow. In the afternoon, right? If we get those windy conditions, it will for sure play over par. So keep an eye on that, right? If that's the case tomorrow, our bogey props are going to be absolute gold mine. Front nine, right? I think they're still going to get to, right? I think a lot of these holes are still going to play under par, especially because some of the pins are kind of easy. But if you're starting, let's say you're a PM wave golfer and you're starting on the front nine, and you have to finish off on that back nine, you're probably in for a heap of trouble tomorrow. I can't imagine that's going to go all that well. That just doesn't seem like a lot of fun. Let's see what's going on in chat. Colin at 1.5. Yeah, actually, I already played that. I loved it. We'll talk about a few more, though. There's a bunch, actually, Frady. 72-hole tournament head-to-head. You've got Aberg minus 150 or Ann plus 120. So I've heard a few injury concerns about Ann. I guess that would be the only counter argument there. But yeah, I couldn't fault you for taking Ann, right? Aberg's a little bit unexperienced. I do think I would take Aberg, though, at minus 150, just for full transparency. I'm a buyer on it, but I couldn't blame you for not. Favorite guy that goes out early, if all things have to be considered, right? Just if I was going to say my favorite guy going off early, it's Scotty Scheffler, right? But if you're looking for ownership, trying to be a little bit more creative about it, it might be Wyndham Clark. Actually, no, sorry, he's PM Wave. Sorry, it might be Ricky Fowler, AM Wave golfer, even par. I told you guys I think he's a good spot to bounce back. If we're going to be a little bit safer about it, Matt Fitzpatrick. I like the way that he was hitting it today. I think that he can go out there, repeat that. Just send a hole-by-hole breakdown. Sweet. Let's check it out on Discord. Thank God I turned my shit on Do Not Disturb. That was killing me there for a second. So we've got the breakdown here. I'll give you guys the exact birdie and bogey averages. So let's do the day first. Let's do it combined. So your birdie or better average, which I can actually just share my screen here. It's probably a better way to do this. And shout out to T. Swenny down there. Made this tool. It's actually a report that we're going to end up using a lot more often on here. We're actually trying to add projections to it and so on and so forth, so that we can compare the board to where we're projecting a lot of these players and find the biggest edges to be had. So there's a innovation being done. Shout out to T. Swenny for the help there, of course. Actually coded everything that you see here. But yeah, with 22.26% birdie or better average. Let's see what that is in numerical values. 0.226. That's just exactly at 4 birdies, 4.01 birdies. And then you can see your bogey average was 17.14%. So 18 times 1784 is 3.2 per round, which is slightly higher than the number that I got. So I think I was looking at numbers before the round ended, right? I was calculating them as they were finishing up play. I guess they were having a little bit of a tough time with it as play was ending. Let's see, the PM wave, right? The bogey average was higher, but so was the birdie average. Now, what that tells me is that a lot of those stud players were making birdies, right? That doesn't surprise me as much. The bogey average being higher may tell me that the conditions were actually harder than we were expecting, right? So maybe that, I don't know, maybe it was noise, right? Maybe it was variance. That'll happen on just a single round sample size. But worth noting there, what was the birdie average in the afternoon? What does that 23% equate to? I'm curious. That's like 4.3 birdies. I think that's a decent number for tomorrow for a projection, right? If you're trying to account for some of the top end players, right? Add 0.5 birdies to that maybe. So maybe like 4.8 birdies, I feel like would be a pretty good projection for some of those top end players. It'll be interesting to see the board on Prize Picks. I haven't looked at it yet. In your opinion, is it a good strategy for Showdown not to pick any 10, 11K players? With only 8K guys, so just skipping the entire top of the board, I don't know if it's my favorite option, but if you want to take like starting in the 9K range, right? Maybe take like 1, 2, 9Ks, maybe 1, 2, 8Ks. I like that. I don't know if I like the all 8K lineup. Like I'm sure I've played a few, right? When I'm just running my optimizer, it spits out a few lineups like that and I don't scrub them out. I play those lineups, but in like a single entry, I don't love going to that kind of build. Like I would never go out of my way to only play 8K players. But yeah, there are lineups I play every once in a while that do follow that build. I know in my main slate this week, I have a few, And some of them are actually towards the top of my portfolio right now. You like the under 68.5 for good old Timber Thagala. I forget who called him that the other day, but I loved the nickname. I think it was because he was always in the trees. We were calling him Timber out there at the woods. That was interesting. Okay, we'll take a look at it. Stallings or Ryder? That's Ryder for me. Sounding like a cash showdown day. I agree. I think so too. Playing a lot of pivots. And you're saying like just playing like cash lineups. I could see that. But honestly, I feel like selecting cash players, like I could see myself taking like Fitz and that, like a Scotty. I don't think there's any must plays in cash. Just kind of like take the guys you think that are playing well. You can see that. I'll probably be playing some cash. I played some cash this week for main slate. Antonio says thoughts on round 2 Rogers. We got him at 68.5. So Patrick Rogers, 68.5. He goes off early, correct? Let me confirm that. Like 90% sure. You're right. Yeah, he's an AM wave tea time. Shot -4 today. I would lean under, but I feel like at 68.5 at like some of the prop sites, like you'll find a better value. So I don't know if I love that bet. I wish he was at 69. Let's see. More Kawa, Finau, and Xander over bogey thoughts. I liked Xander, and I know for a fact I had more Kawa. Did I have Finau too? I'll just show you guys. It was up here before. I'm sure people saw the card anyways. I'll just show you. I didn't have Finau. I had these 4. So this will be the prop card that we're doing as a stream here, guys. I don't know if anything's been bumped. I don't know if anything's been taken off the board. I think it'll get bumped here at some point. Let's see. Shoffley, Cantlay are both PM wave tea times. I'm fading them. They should be in slightly windier conditions. Even if they're not, right? The bogey average was over 3 for the day. In both waves. Morikawa there, 1.5 bogeys. Also Hovland in the AM wave. Morikawa was horrible today. I think he could definitely go out there and kind of mail it in a little bit. Even if he has a good round, right? Only making 1 bogey or 0 bogeys, it's going to be a heck of an accomplishment. And then you have Hovland, who, he's not the best bogey avoider. He's also not the worst, right? He used to be, outside the top 100 when it came to bogey avoidance. That's no longer the thing. He's much better with the short game, but he's really aggressive still. He's not the best driver, right, in terms of driving accuracy, especially at like this kind of course. So I leaned on that over too. Like, I don't think anyone should be at 1.5 bogeys. So like, we'll be off the stream here in the next like 5-10 minutes, right after we go through this prize picks board. And I feel like we're going to be adding more bogey props. It is going to be likely because there's quite a few guys out there at 1.5. And I think like almost everyone you could take an over at 1.5. And there's probably some guys at 2 bogeys that we could do the very same thing with. So we'll have to see. Scotty Scheffler, right? You might not want to fade at 1.5. I'll just throw that out there. So let's see, 5.5 bogeys for these elite tiers. That's actually the same between both sites. I want to see, what is Xander, Cantlay, and what are Hovland at when it comes to Underdog? I think they were 5.5. They are. So they're a little bit higher there on that end. Let's see, Homa's at 4.5, 4 down there. There were some overs at 4.5 on Underdog I was considering. Just trying to make sure they're not at 4 over here on prize picks, right? That would kind of suck. It doesn't look like it, right? The only guys at 4, you've got English going out late. You've got Bennett, right, who's kind of inconsistent at this point, right? He's at 4. Wyndham Clark, honestly, I don't hate that. Let's go ahead and just throw that in there right now. 4 for Wyndham. Like, I feel like that's just disrespect. Like, the guy is actually pretty good. How many did he make today? I think he still made a decent amount of birdies despite playing like horribly for most of his round. Let's find that. What did he shoot today? I don't even think it was that bad. Where are you at, Wyndham? Who slowly but surely is becoming a player that I like a lot more. All right. Shot -2. He actually played way better than I thought. He made 4 today. He didn't even play well today. What the disrespect. The disrespect over here from Prize Picks. Okay, we'll have to find a pair for that. We'll have plenty of time to look through it. But yeah, that's definitely my favorite lean at this point. A lot of the props that we hit today, which by the way, on Underdog, I had like the worst pairs ever today. I had like I think the hit rate overall was like 55% for all my props, which like isn't great, right? But shouldn't have been like a horrible day. But the amount of slips, I think it was like 7 of them I went 1-1 on, just was horrible today. But we're not doing that again tomorrow. A lot of this just RNG, right? Just comes down to luck with how your pairings go. And let's just say the pairings did not go great today. Not at all. Yeah, that's weird, Mark. I'll check it on my end. Sometimes, like, I don't know. I have to check. Sometimes I have to like kick someone from the server, and then they're allowed to come in with the same account. Like it says that you're in the server, then in your end you're not able to access it. That might be the case. So I'll check it out, Mark. Maybe it says you're in the server, then your end you can't see it. Check out fairway, some decent value. Okay. Russell Henley, I know you love his fairway lines. The guy hits a ton of fairways. I couldn't blame you. They lowered a lot of them. That's interesting. That's interesting indeed. And yeah, I could see taking that over, right? I don't love Russell Henley this week, but the average, I'll remind you guys too, it was like 9.98 fairways per round. So these guys, in Max Homa today, right? He hit 9, right? He pushed for us. We had him at 9 fairways. Russell Henley is a much more accurate player. And I would have even maybe considered taking Homa at 9.5 yesterday. I know the fairways might have been slightly harder to hit, but like, I don't care. Russell Henley is that accurate. Like, I feel like he can get that done. Colin Bogey's, yeah, that's probably the best one of that bunch, honestly. I would take the other ones, though. Thoughts on Homa at 2 bogeys? Yeah, kind of like Colin. And I really liked Colin because he was at 1.5. So if they post that back up, definitely add it. But yeah, Homa could mail it in too, right? He's +2. Now, he's not quite at the Morikawa level, right? At like +4. But that's still kind of worrisome. Let's look at these other fairway props, right? The whole board's significantly lower, and the average, at least, let's look through this. We can do a little bit of research here because maybe it was slightly higher last year than what we're used to seeing. I can't imagine it was like that much higher. So 70.4 in 2021, it was 64.5, so it was actually lower. Okay. 60. Oh, okay. I don't like what we're seeing here. And these count the intermediates. Okay. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe last year was a little bit of an aberration because, like, look at this 64.7, 63, 60. Okay. That's enough proof for me. So, what's a 65% rate? I feel like that was a good average out of those years. There's 14 fairways, there's 65% on average. That's 9.1. I still don't hate this Russell Henley prop, but I get why they lowered the board. Makes a little bit more sense, but I still like some overs. I feel like it might have been overcorrected slightly. Maybe even some of these lower tier guys, like you could take some overs. Like I know Bennett's been hitting some fairways. Shane Lowry's been hitting some fairways of late. Let's see. Max Homa, right? We took him at 9 and he ended up pushing. Like I don't hate that at 8.5. A Wyndham Clark's been hitting fairways. Tommy Fleetwood's like the fairway god. He hits a ton of fairways out there. I think there's some value to be had here. In fact, I want to add the Fleetwood one. He probably didn't hit a lot of fairways today. I imagine that's why we're getting the price that we are on him. But I mean, how bad was it? Was it that bad? He hit 10 today. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and toss this one in there right now. That Fleetwood line is nuts. And speaking of, I'll throw the Fleetwood in there and I'll throw Henley in there because Henley's like most accurate driver on tour too. Like Harley was kind of hinting at there. And he's at least last year below the average. Right now, I think long-term, right, a little bit less fairways hit at this course than what we saw last year, but I still like the value here. Fleetwood hit 10 today, right? And he's at 8.5 now. He's a really accurate driver. I'm liking what we're seeing there for sure. Over there on the underdog side, I want to do some comparisons between the two boards. So we know birdies are better slightly higher over here in underdog. So if you're going to take overs on birdies, I would at least check out Prize Picks first. Looks like you can line shop in a few cases for some of those elite tier players. Let's look at strokes. So they have 66.5 on the Scotty. I think that's what Underdog had too. They do. Okay. 67 on some other elites. Looks like very similar kind of pricing. Not all that surprising, kind of disappointing though. Like when there are discrepancies that you can take advantage of. The whole way down to like Keegan, Alberg, Bennett. What are your lower tier options on Underdog? Are they 68? 68 and a half, I guess, for a Wyndham Clark. Yeah, I don't know. The bogey props look good. We already took quite a few of those. These fairway props looked pretty nice. I will say the over, right, on Wyndham birdies. I think that's kind of disrespectful. Let's see. Can I even take Henley? I feel like I'm at my daily limit. We'll see if I can. If I can take him with Wyndham too, we'll make it like a full round robin. Okay, we can. We'll do that there. Like that feels like a disrespectful prop there. But outside of that, the pricing feels pretty fair. Like we saw the course today. I don't think it's going to play all that differently tomorrow. I do think there'll be a lot of bogeys on the back nine. That's like the kind of one thing I was left with when we were going through the pins there earlier. We took some of the overs, but maybe we should throw in a few others, right? If we can find some of these PM wave guys. So we already took Xander's over. Okay. So we can't really add that. We've got Homa PM wave, right? We talked about him being a little bit disengaged. Like maybe that's not the worst idea. Not as many 1.5s. Did they bump a few? I don't think they did. Maybe I've just remembered more of these 1.5s than there actually were in reality. I don't know. Kind of looks like it. They have Cantley at 66.5. What is he? He's 70 on prize picks, right? He's not 70.5. Not 70, 67 strikes. Yeah. So, okay. That's a little bit of value if you wanted to take the over. But yeah, these props are crazy on here. Like I feel like Underdog is way too favorable on these guys. It feels like it gives these players a little bit too much credit. Like they make less bogeys than your average player, but like half as much as the field average, especially with like some pretty tough pins tomorrow. First off, Keegan Bradley over 2 bogeys, that's free. I hate saying that prop is absolutely free. And in fact, it's so free that I need to find a pairing rather quickly for it because I love that prop. You've got Cam Young at 2 bogeys. Don't hate that. I need to find someone to mix in. Rory, did I take? I like fading Rory, the loser Rory, all the time. We could go with Homa, right, who was a little bit off, right? Like, I don't think that's the worst idea. You could go with Siwoo, but, like, he's at 2.5, right? So you're getting taxed on that a little bit. Anyone down in chat that has anything they love here for Underdog? How do I feel about Scotty? I love him there tomorrow, Roman. I think he's going to have a big day. He's didn't really putt today and once again just torched a golf course. So I'm just going to ride it. At this point, Scotty's he's on another level, right? He's him at this point, as some people would say. I don't know if I want to throw him in with Rory. I feel like we might find a better prop like Finau. Oh boy. I'm so indecisive about it right now. I don't love it. Where's scoring? Let's see. Let's bring up this birdie or better. Sorry, the bogey avoidance, not birdie or better. Wrong category. Let's see. Every time I do this when I'm betting against Rory, look at this. He's number 64 on torn bogey avoidance. Smash, right? What is Finau's mark? Finau can't be that bad. Finau's been pretty good this year. Number 19, right? Give credit where it's due. Tony Finau, absolute stud. Yeah, maybe we do fade Rory McIlroy. Maybe it is the move. I don't know. Maybe someone in chat, you're saying Finau. You're saying Rom? Rom? Use your prop report. Yeah, the issue is with that T20 is I don't have the one from today. I have the one from a few days ago. So I guess it would work, right? We could go through all the stats on that on there. But we have to You're a good point. I could bring up the bogey stuff on there. I didn't think of that. I'll do that. Rory though, or Finau? We have votes for either side, and I agree with both of those. You got to vote for John Rahm. Which, speaking of, what's Rahm's bogey avoidance? He luck sacked the shit out of it today, right? I think that's a kind of part of it. He's number 5 on torn bogey avoidance. I don't know if I love the Rahm one. Like, just from the numbers perspective, I don't love it. Yeah, player stats work. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yep. Strokes over. Yeah, I'm already maxed out on him here in Underdog. But yeah, I wouldn't hate that as a replacement, right? If you couldn't get the bogey in the one, the over on strokes is a good way to also take him in a negative fashion. I wouldn't hate that. So the Keegan one, we know we want to get there. So it's between Rory in Finale, we could just take all three of them, right? I guess would be the other way to do this. Or we try and figure out which one we don't want to fade. They're both AMT times, which I don't love, right? I would rather them be in the PM wave and be in slightly harder conditions. But that's part of the reason we're also getting them at 1.5 bogeys. So we have to consider that, right? That's part of the pricing, right? That's why we're getting some value with these two. It's just which one do I want to take? And the thing is, I like both of them like the same, right? Rory's worse in terms of the bogey avoidance stat, but he's a better player than Finale. Like no one can argue otherwise. It's just like tomfoolery. You're trying to say that Tony Finale's a better player than Rory. So like, I don't know. It's kind of like a toss up to me. That's why I might just play both of them. 2.63 per round. Yeah, and I know Finale is probably closer to like 2.3, 2.4 per round. So you're saying, yeah, his baseline's 2.6. Oh boy. Yeah, we're gonna do Rory. I'm playing Finale this week in fantasy, and I'm not playing Rory in fantasy this week. So it also makes it a lot easier to bet against a Rory McIlroy, right? I feel a lot better about doing that. So we'll add that one on there too. I know a lot of people couldn't get all the ones over there on for the first set, right? Especially like Morikawa that was taken off. We already added a few props over here. Just to reiterate, if you're just hopping in here, I had the Wyndham over 4 birdies. I think that's disrespectful, right? He's at 4.5 an underdog. I think that's a little bit more fair, but even there, I would probably lean towards his over. Over here for fairway props, there's Russell Henley at 9.5. He's at least number one. He's at least in the top 3 for driving accuracy on tour. I believe he might even be number 1. Just to show you guys, right? The kid's a stud at hitting fairways. He's like in another class of his own where driving accuracy percentage. Look at this. He's number 1, right? Told you guys. It's by a good margin, right? He's not just number 1. He's like number 1 by a good amount. Out there on the PGA Tour when it comes to accuracy. And then the other one we took was Tommy Fleetwood, who I don't think the stats on Fleetwood are that amazing, but he hits a lot of fairways at like major championships. So yeah, he's like 60%, which what is that? Slightly better than average. Yeah, it's like 2% better than your average. The average at this course is typically like 9.1. So like if he's slightly better than average, it means he's slightly better than a 9.1 average. And we can get him at 8.5. Like that just seems like a misprice. And today he hit 10 fairways, right? So it's not like he was like out of sorts today, right? And that's why we're getting a lower projection on Tommy Fleetwood. I truly don't get that one. And I also kind of don't understand the Russell Henley one too. Like he's just that much better than everyone else when it comes to driving accuracy. Like he should be the guy at 10, if not like 10.5 fairways compared to the rest of the board. So I like those 3 for value there too. So I mix and matched those. That's what I went with. Yeah, Tony's 2.3, Rory's 2.63. Yeah, so Rory's definitely the best option, especially because I played Tony and Rom psychologically there. We've got who do I feel better about between Siwoo or Henley? So 2 chalky players that like the golf course, fit it pretty well. Both kind of average today, right? Henley played better than Siwoo, but I'll go Henley. Go Siwoo for round 2. I think Siwoo can brush it off, right? You know, in a vacuum, I think Siwoo is a better player than Russell Henley. I was going to say Henley just because he played better in round 1, but no, Siwoo can brush it off. I think he's got it. Yeah, you got Rory for sure with all the live stuff and contending last week. Yeah, I didn't think about that. That's a good factor to consider as well, right? Is the mental fatigue, right? Being a little bit jet lagged. You can see it. Thoughts on Alberg in round 2? Finished strong today. I like him in general. I'm playing him. It's not because he finished strong. Like I think that helps players out there. I think he's just much better than I think most people even realize. And I think a lot of people, right, are jumping on the Alberg, bandwagon. I don't know if enough are. And when they catch on, when he starts to go out there, flash a lot of that upside, people will be running real quickly. So yeah, I like him quite a bit. Underdog has a bunch of guys at 1.5 bogeys. Yeah, if you're just hopping in here, we did 2, Ryan. We actually took 6 of them already over here on stream. In fact, these 2 were the last 2 that we took. So yeah, I completely agree with you. I think they're too low. The average today was 3.23 bogeys per round. And like a guy like Keegan Bradley, right? Like he's not horrible at avoiding bogeys, but like just to show you the averages here, scoring, bogey avoidance. What is Keegan? let's see, 94 on tour, right? So he's like slightly better than tour average there at that number, which is nowhere near, right, his 2 projection, right? That's probably closer to like 3 bogeys per round. So probably a lot of push equity for Keegan Bradley at 2. But considering he had such a good round 1, it wouldn't surprise me if he came back to earth a little bit. We got a question about DFS. We've got Jaeger or Straka. I'd be Jaeger for me. I like his upside. I like how aggressive he is. But I think both are decent plays for tomorrow, right? Both are good iron players that could get hot in a hurry. So you wouldn't get any sort of lip from me for going out there and playing either one. I think they both make sense. Let's look at the rest of the board. We'll see if there's any lingering value, especially on prize picks. Like I've already looked at the underdog board. We did it before I went live, but this prize picks board is new. So let's scan it for value, see if there's anything else to point out. Nothing crazy, especially like strokes and birdies. Just, I don't know, probably some micro edges, probably a lot of like leans that I would have, but nothing that just seems drastically mispriced. If you're looking at the fairway board, like even like a Sanjay and Morikawa, like I feel like you could take these 2 guys over. I already know I'm at my daily limit, so I can't enter anything else in prize picks until midnight, which I will be probably here in 3 hours. But like some other fairway overs, like Corey Connors, right? Kind of like a Henley, like he's an elite tier fairway hitter. Tom Kim, the same thing. Like I know Scotty's not known for hitting a ton of fairways, but he's been pretty good at doing that this year. Hovland, same thing. He's been very underrated in that category. There's probably some other value to take here on the fairway board. So I'll leave you guys with that, right? I still got to post things on Patreon. I can't get everything bumped that I want to play there before midnight. So we'll leave it at that at this point. I appreciate all the support on the channel. Again, there's a link in the description if you want to join our Showdown community contest for tomorrow. It's a $5 entry. You go in there, the top 15 get paid. You play for bragging rights. You play out there for a little bit of dough on the side as well. And we'll have a good time doing it. So tomorrow we'll review that. It'll be one of the first things that we do. We're doing this for rounds 3 and 4 as well. So if you learned a little bit, if you feel like you're a little bit more prepared for your round 2 showdown now, we'll make sure you subscribe and show back probably closer to like, let's say 7:30, hopefully maybe a little bit earlier than what we went live for today. And again, we'll be doing analysis for everything over the weekend. Best of luck out there. Appreciate the support. Smash the like button on the way out of here. And let's get this cash, fellas.